Some individuals actually flourish when they're disrespectful. They deliberately test your limits, provoke your reactions, and anticipate you losing your composure. That's their entire strategy. But here's the fundamental reality. When you lose your temper, they achieve their goal. True strength manifests in maintaining your calm and countering with words so precise, so startlingly effective that it renders them silent. No shouting matches, no emotional explosions, just strategically chosen phrases that make them regret targeting you. Throughout this presentation, I'll provide you with powerfully effective responses that immediately neutralize rudeness. Master these, and you'll never experience disrespect the same way again. First, powerful response. You're certainly welcome to your viewpoint, just as I'm completely free to disregard it. This stands as one of the most underestimated yet effective strategies when confronting impolite, arrogant, or critical individuals. It's not confrontational, it's not emotional. It's simply a factual statement establishing that their words carry no influence in your world. Believe me, there's nothing more aggravating to egotistical personalities than being rendered irrelevant. The psychology behind why disrespectful people condescend to you isn't about offering help or genuinely believing they're correct. It's about dominating the interaction. They crave that sensation of superiority, as if their perspective represents absolute truth, while you're merely someone requiring their guidance. When you decline to argue, refuse to justify yourself, and simply acknowledge their comment before moving on, it strips them of all perceived power. When I first grasped this concept, I used to operate under the misconception that I needed to validate myself to others. If someone criticized my decisions, I'd provide explanations. If they ridiculed my endeavors, I'd attempt to demonstrate their significance. This was a significant error. I recall when I initially embarked on an important project, one that held tremendous personal meaning. I had invested countless hours, sacrificed sleep, overcome obstacles, and made considerable compromises. When I mentioned it to an acquaintance, he responded with a condescending smirk. "That seems like a complete waste of effort. You honestly believe anyone will care about that?" The former version of myself would have engaged in debate, listing all the reasons my project showed promise, explaining my passion for it, arguing why he was mistaken. But then I realized, why was I justifying myself to someone who had never accomplished anything meaningful in his life? Instead, I simply smiled and stated, "You're certainly welcome to your viewpoint, just as I'm completely free to disregard it," before shifting the conversation. And what transpired? He was left utterly speechless. He had expected me to become defensive, to seek his approval, but by completely dismissing him, I removed all his perceived power. And on some level, he recognized this. Why this counter proves so remarkably effective? This response perfectly neutralizes rude individuals because it denies them their desired outcome, your emotional reaction. It clearly communicates that while they're free to speak, you're under no obligation to value their words. You aren't seeking their validation, and their comments don't undermine your confidence. People particularly despise being ignored when they're attempting to demean others, which explains why this approach works so brilliantly. It instantly conveys that their opinions hold no significance to you. The ultimate blow to someone with an inflated ego. When to deploy this response effectively? When someone disparages your professional path or aspirations, particularly if you're pursuing unconventional goals, and makes comments like, "That will never succeed," simply smile and deliver this line. When relatives with toxic tendencies critique your life choices, whether parents, siblings, or others who mistakenly believe they have authority over your decisions, calmly remind them of this truth. When colleagues attempt to diminish your contributions in professional settings, as some individuals constantly posture as superior, employ this phrase and proceed with your work. The uncomfortable reality: most critics aren't outperforming you, they're simply more vocal. Typically, the louder they are, the more insecure they actually feel. They attempt to control discussions because, fundamentally, they fear being wrong. This explains why the response proves so potent. It subtly reinforces that their words don't affect you, that you don't require their approval, that their perspective remains merely an opinion rather than fact. An ancient proverb states, "The lion doesn't concern itself with the sheep's opinions." This represents the mindset you must adopt. When someone rudely expresses their unsolicited views about your life, don't debate, don't explain yourself. Just smile, deliver this line, and continue with your day. Ultimately, your life belongs to you, and their perspectives hold absolutely no relevance. Second powerful response. If I received $1 for each intelligent remark you've made, I'd be completely penniless. This counter proves exceptionally effective because it simultaneously accomplishes two objectives. It appears lighthearted but carries devastating impact. Superficially, it might sound humorous, but the underlying message is brutally clear. You never say anything worthwhile without stating it directly. It exposes their lack of substantive contributions. People who behave rudely frequently speak excessively while saying very little of value. This response forces them to confront that reality. The most beautiful aspect? They can't reply without appearing defensive or ironically proving your point. It's essentially conversational checkmate. Personal experience demonstrating this response's effectiveness. I had a former classmate we'll call Ryan, whose entire personality revolved around mocking others. He wasn't particularly intelligent, amusing, or accomplished. He simply mastered appearing that way through volume and confidence. His entire strategy involved speaking louder than everyone else, inserting sarcastic insults, and making people feel inferior so he could feel superior. During a group discussion where I was explaining a straightforward concept, Ryan interrupted with his characteristic smug tone. "Oh, yes, because you're such an intellectual authority, right?" Everyone laughed, not because his comment was witty, but because he delivered it with such overconfidence. In such moments, you face two options: allow them to prevail or shut them down decisively. I chose the latter, smiling and responding, "Ryan, if I received $1 for each intelligent remark you've made, I'd be completely penniless." The reaction? Immediate silence. Someone nearly choked on their drink. Another muttered, "Brutal." And Ryan? He just sat there uncomfortably, attempting to formulate a reply, but having nothing. That's when the realization struck me. Loud individuals aren't necessarily intelligent individuals, and when you expose this properly, they collapse. Why this counter devastates? It underscores their intellectual deficiencies without direct confrontation. You're not explicitly calling them foolish, but making it abundantly clear they've never contributed anything meaningful. It reverses the power dynamic. Rude people succeed by making others feel inferior, but this line turns their own tactics against them. It places them in an impossible position. If they argue, they appear even less intelligent. If they remain silent, they admit defeat. Either way, you emerge victorious. When to utilize this response effectively? When someone persistently interrupts with sarcastic insults, when coworkers pretend superiority while offering no substantive contributions, the type who criticize everything while providing no solutions, or when friends constantly mock others while saying nothing intelligent themselves. Some people exist solely to take jabs at others. Time to reposition them. The brutal truth. Individuals who enjoy mocking others typically have nothing valuable to offer themselves. They conceal their insecurities behind sarcasm, believing it makes them appear clever, when really it just reveals their inadequacies. The optimal approach? Expose them. Next time someone who consistently says nothing meaningful attempts to position themselves as the smartest person present, deploy this line and observe them flounder for a response. Third powerful response. I refuse to engage with individuals who derive satisfaction from disrespect. This isn't merely a counter, it's a declaration of strength. It communicates to the other party, I recognize exactly what you're doing, and I decline to participate. Because let's be honest, some people don't desire discussion, debate, or resolution. They simply want to provoke, belittle, and elevate themselves. These individuals never truly listen. They merely wait for their opportunity to speak, transform every disagreement into personal attacks, and treat rudeness as a personality trait. They adore phrases like, "I'm just being brutally honest," when in reality, they're simply brutal. Why expend energy arguing with someone who fundamentally disrespects you? Personal demonstration of this response's effectiveness. Previously, I worked with someone we'll call Jake, who didn't just behave rudely, he thrived on disrespect. Merely disagreeing wasn't sufficient. He needed to make people feel insignificant while doing so. He interrupted meetings, dismissed ideas without offering alternatives, and specialized in passive-aggressive insults. During a team discussion where I proposed a workflow improvement, before I could finish, Jake rolled his eyes and sneered. "Yeah, because you're such an expert, right?" It was condescending, dismissive, and completely uncalled for. Years prior, I might have taken the bait, justifying myself, explaining my reasoning, or retaliating. But that day, I refused to play his game. I simply leaned back, looked directly at him, and stated, "I refuse to engage with individuals who derive satisfaction from disrespect, then remain silent." The room fell quiet. Everyone awaited Jake's response, but he had nothing. What could he say? Continuing would only validate my point. Backtracking would make him appear weak. He fidgeted, attempting to devise a comeback, but none existed. Most importantly, he never tried that nonsense with me again. Why this line proves so potent? It identifies their behavior without participating in it. You're not insulting them, you're describing them, which proves far more damaging. It removes their control. These individuals thrive on reactions, and when deprived of one, they lose. It makes them reconsider their actions. Whether they admit it or not, you've essentially held up a mirror. When to deploy this response? When someone persistently tries initiating conflict instead of fueling their negativity, starve it. When coworkers or supervisors speak condescendingly, this makes clear you won't tolerate disrespect. When relatives belittle you, some believe proximity grants them license, incorrect. Or when strangers attempt provocation, not every conflict merits engagement. Some people aren't worth acknowledging. The uncomfortable reality: some people don't argue to resolve anything. They argue to win. They argue because they enjoy provoking reactions and derive perverse satisfaction from unsettling others. Therefore, the optimal response? No response. Instead, deliver this line and walk away, because when they realize they can't control you, they've already lost. Fourth powerful response: that attitude won't take you far in life. This isn't merely a counter, it's a reality check. People who behave rudely, disrespectfully, and dismissively believe they're succeeding, when actually that approach leads nowhere. Why this line resonates? Rude individuals mistake condescension for strength, confusing arrogance with confidence. But life doesn't operate that way. Nobody respects those who treat others poorly. No manager promotes someone who can't collaborate. Nobody builds relationships with constant belittlers. No successful person achieved their position through endless criticism rather than substantive contributions. When you say, that attitude won't take you far in life, you're not just countering them, you're exposing their impending failure. You're forcing them to confront that their behavior will ultimately backfire. Personal demonstration. Years ago, I worked with someone who considered rudeness his defining trait. We'll call him Mark. He habitually spoke down to everyone. If you erred, he'd roll his eyes rather than help. If you proposed an idea, he'd reject it without consideration. He operated under the delusion that diminishing others made him appear more significant. When he snapped at a coworker during a meeting, maybe if you actually understood this, we wouldn't waste time. People grew uncomfortable, but stayed silent. Exactly what rude individuals rely on. I looked at him and stated, that attitude won't take you far in life. Initially, Mark smirked, attempting to dismiss it, but as the meeting progressed, I noticed his confidence fading. For the first time, he appeared uneasy, because fundamentally, he knew I was correct. The conclusive evidence? When promotions were announced months later, guess who was overlooked? Mark. Because regardless of skill, if people can't tolerate working with you, you're going nowhere. Why this line succeeds? It compels them to consider long-term consequences. They might believe rudeness empowers them now, but where does it lead? Exposes their self-sabotage. Their behavior isn't just irritating, it's career-limiting, and presents facts rather than insults. Facts hurt more than insults ever could. When to utilize this response? When coworkers act condescendingly, remind them their behavior has professional costs. When strangers behave disrespectfully, publicly rude individuals need to hear this. When relatives constantly criticize others, family status doesn't excuse toxicity. Or when friends maintain negative attitudes, if they're perpetually dismissive, perhaps they need this truth. Final perspective. Some people operate under the misconception that rudeness makes them invincible. but life humbles those who consider themselves superior. Next time someone disrespects you, deploy this line and watch them confront the possibility that they're the actual problem. Fifth powerful response. This discussion concluded before it began. This isn't merely a counter, it's verbal checkmate. This response doesn't just end an argument, it erases its existence. It communicates to the disrespectful person, "You thought we were about to engage, but I'm not even participating." Disrespectful individuals thrive on conflict. They want to unsettle you, drag you into arguments where they feel dominant. But when you decline to engage, when you demonstrate their words hold no value, they lose all power. By stating this discussion concluded before it began, you accomplish something remarkably powerful. You strip them of control. You render them insignificant. You demonstrate they don't dictate your emotions. And believe me, nothing infuriates rude people more than being disregarded. Why this line resonates. Imagine a bully shoving someone, expecting retaliation, but instead, their target walks away indifferently. The bully stands there powerless, exactly what occurs when you use this response. You remove their capacity to provoke, manipulate, or engage. You make them realize their words mean absolutely nothing to you, the ultimate insult. This approach denies them argument satisfaction. They want conflict, you refuse to participate. Instantly positions them beneath you. You're communicating their words aren't worth responding to, and preserves your energy. Engaging with rude people drains you. This ends it immediately. Personal demonstration. Years ago, I had a perpetually negative coworker. We'll call him Jake. He criticized everything, your ideas, your work, even your speech patterns, especially before others. During a meeting where I suggested a new project approach, before I finished, Jake smirked, "Yeah, or we could just do it properly." I felt the room tense. He wanted me to justify myself, to argue, to react. Instead, I calmly stated, "This discussion concluded before it began," then ignored him. The room fell silent. Jake appeared completely disoriented. He expected confrontation, but received dismissal. From that moment, he never tried that with me again. When to deploy this response? When someone attempts baiting you into arguments, you owe them no energy. When coworkers, bosses, acquaintances act passive-aggressive, shut it down preemptively. When friends, relatives behave unnecessarily rudely, you needn't entertain negativity. Or when strangers insult you unprovoked, some simply want attention. Don't provide it. Final perspective. Not every conflict merits engagement. Not every insult deserves response. Rude people triumph when they steal your energy, but fail when you demonstrate their insignificance. Next time someone tries drawing you into pointless arguments, deploy this line and walk away while they sit stunned, realizing they lost before starting. Sixth powerful response. Appreciate the input. I'll make certain to forget it immediately. Rude people thrive on control. Their objective involves making you feel inferior, rattling your confidence, and dragging you to their level. When you counter with this line, you instantly strip them of power. Because fundamentally, when someone disrespects you, they're rarely offering anything valuable. They're not engaging in meaningful dialogue or providing constructive criticism. They're simply speaking to hear themselves, expecting you to react. Instead of taking them seriously, you do the opposite. Treat them as so irrelevant they're not worth remembering. That's what makes this counter devastating. It acknowledges their effort just enough to completely dismiss it. Why this phrase succeeds. It renders their words instantly worthless. Disrespectful people want you to internalize their comments, replay them mentally, let them undermine your confidence. This tells them you won't even retain their words, halts them abruptly. They expect debate, anger, justification. You provide casual indifference, communicating they don't merit engagement, and protects your energy. Some people crave drama. Your peace matters more than their nonsense. Use this phrase, end the conversation, and move forward. Real-world application. At work, when a coworker constantly rejects your ideas, not because they're flawed, but because they enjoy criticizing, respond with this line and continue speaking as if they never spoke. With toxic friends, relatives. When family members make snide remarks about your life choices, respond with appreciation for their forgettable comment and change subjects. With strangers, trolls, when someone attempts publicly insulting you, respond with mock gratitude for their immediately disposable input. Psychological power. Rude individuals operate on simple formulas. They insult, you react emotionally, they feel empowered. When you respond with effortless dismissal, you break their entire system. You deny their reward, reminding them their words hold zero significance in your world. Seventh powerful response. You appear remarkably committed to embarrassing yourself. Some people simply can't help themselves. They live for drama, conflict, and pointless arguments. It's as though they wake up daily, look in the mirror, and think, how can I humiliate myself today? This counter proves brutal because it reverses the situation. They believed they were making you appear foolish, but now you've revealed the truth. They're only embarrassing themselves. And most painfully, they don't even realize it. Why this response devastates? It forces self-reflection. Even if they won't admit it, when someone behaves rudely, they expect defensiveness or anger. This makes them pause and consider if they're actually behaving foolishly. Redirects attention onto them. Instead of defending, you've made them the focus in the worst way. If others are present, they'll notice how ridiculous this person acts, and maintains your composure. You're not angry or flustered. You're calmly observing and identifying their foolishness, making them appear ridiculous without effort. Real-world application. At work, when a coworker constantly interrupts meetings with eye-rolling or snide comments, pause, observe them with slight amusement, deliver this line, then continue as if they don't exist, leaving them in awkward silence or attempting weak defenses that only worsen their position. With toxic friends, relatives, when so-called friends throw passive-aggressive insults, hoping to unsettle you, chuckle and remark on their dedication to self-humiliation before enjoying your day while they recognize they've played themselves. With strangers, online trolls, when someone acts obnoxiously publicly or on social media attempting to draw you into nonsense, deploy this line, commend their effort, then disengage, leaving them confronting their own foolishness. Psychological insight. Most rude people don't actually believe they're being foolish. They think they're being clever, dominant, or winning interactions. When you identify their behavior for what it truly is, you force them to confront an uncomfortable truth. They're humiliating themselves, and everyone recognizes it. That's what makes this so effective. It doesn't just counter them, it makes them reconsider future foolish behavior. Final perspective. Ultimately, handling rude people isn't about outperforming them in insults. It's about outperforming them in composure. You needn't raise your voice, argue, or even take them seriously. Here's the fundamental truth. Disrespect only succeeds when you allow it to affect you. But when you remain calm, counter with precision, and walk away as if their words meant nothing, that's when they feel the sting. That's when they realize they wasted energy trying to diminish you, only to end up humiliating themselves. So next time someone disrespects you, remember, you possess the power to make them regret it. Not by lowering yourself to their level, but by demonstrating how little their words mean to you. Once they realize that, you've already won. What are your views on this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I will personally read all of your comments. And if you seriously want to level up in life, don't forget to show some love by hitting the like and subscribe button. Stay strong. Until next time.